Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here is a quote just for this episode. Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself. Andrew Carnegie,
Love it.
our guest today, good friend of the Culture Matters podcast. You've heard them on the show before on episode called Hitting the Target, season 18, episode 208. Great friend, Culture Matters podcast. Christopher Tighe has been elevating people in and around construction for, well, what seems to be for a long, long, long time because of explosive growth. We're going to learn about leading, not only in the field, but virtually, building a culture, changing the game. The word disruption gets thrown around a lot, but I got to say, this is somebody that is disrupting, thinks differently outside the box, has the consultative mind. Really excited to have you back, my friend, today to talk all things leadership, maybe a little bit about some systems out there that may or may not be value add. If you recall, we always have great talks, and I like picking his mind. So thanks for coming back to the Culture Matters podcast.
Thanks,
We're into
Jay.
like the 600s now with this show almost.
Awesome, man. Congratulations. That's cool.
Well, you're helping, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And thanks for having me. I love this show. I love chatting with you. Every time you call, I'm like, all right, cool. Jay's calling, and always wondering how deep the conversation is going to go and how many big words am I going to learn during that conversation.
You and me alike. I don't know where they're coming from. When it comes to learning, though, you're big
Yeah.
on learning, and you have been for a long time. You've done continued education and so on. What would you say is the biggest aha in 2024 since our last, get together?
Uh, the thing that comes to mind is trusting the process. Some people don't like that phrase, but I do. And the number one thing that comes to my mind is just the SEO for Google search that I've been working on. I spent a lot of time on that last year, wondering when it's going to work. And so this year, majority of our leads are coming from our website. In fact, last month, 54% of our leads came from our website.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how does that work exactly? What's happening? What's that customer journey then? Because some people might be thinking, oh, SEO, I was going to
Mhm.
invest in that. And then it just seemed like expensive.
Yeah, my thought is if you have a website and it's not optimized, you're wasting your money because your website should be bringing in leads. That's your front door. And that is really like a representation of your company. People should be getting their questions answered before they even call you. They should be trusting you before they even call you. So that's why I use my website so much is when they call me, I want them to see that, hey, these guys do quality work. I've seen videos. I can trust them. I've watched this podcast. He kind of knows what he's talking about. And when they call me, my hope is that, it's just an easy conversation.
When they what are their problems that they're looking to solve? For those that don't know your line of work yet, they haven't heard episode 208.
Sure. Yeah. So we're in residential and commercial now construction. So we do remodels, new additions for residential side, and for commercial, we do commercial build outs. We just finished a coffee shop in Spring, Texas. So that was a big project, a lot of fun and a lot of lessons learned. But we turned an old bank into a coffee shop. So that was a lot of fun.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. And now is that intimidating to go from residential to commercial? Because there may be our audience, people that are trying to make that switch feel like it's a wholly, completely different paradigm.
Right. For me, no, I didn't have that fear, mainly because my the thing that the way I've been built my business is I find the right people who know how to do things.
Hmm.
And so my job really is just kind of like a coach. I find the right people who can do the job. I bring them all together. We come up with a plan and we execute. So really, that's my job. I don't swing hammers. If you gave me a hammer, I wouldn't know what to do with it. So it's more of like just project management, making sure that the client is happy, addressing their concerns, making sure the project is on time and budget. And if the issues come up, you communicate that quickly and address them.
And so, what about sales outside of the SEO? Is there any outbound involved in the company, or is it mostly
Not yet.
converting on inbound?
And it's all inbound right now.
Wow.
So my leads come from SEO, my website. I do Google local service ads, so that's my second most leads I get, and then networking.
So the local service. So let's say, for example, is this like the residential? Can you
Hmm.
unpack that? Like
Like
the
if someone,
customer?
yeah. So if they were to click on just any lead, their journey, is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
you're talking?
we'll
Yeah.
understand that better.
So when a lead comes in, our processes, they're all inbound, like I said. Our processes, Isamar, my assistant, will either answer the call or the lead will come in through our form online. And so within 24 hours, actually probably more within a couple of hours, she's contacting the lead, understanding what they're looking for. She'll schedule a phone call with Pablo, who is our what do we call them? Field operations specialist. So he'll call them to vet them out, and just make sure that their budget's realistic, see what kind of project they want to do, if it's something that we do or not. And then if assuming that, everything looks good, we put them on the calendar for a sales appointment. And then sales appointment happens. We try to get the estimate out to them within a week. Our KPI is 7. We're trying to hit 5. Right now, we're actually at about 8. Last month, we were at 16 days. We brought it down to 8 days. And now we're
Wow.
trying to shoot for 7 and get down closer to 5. Get that
Get
estimate
the
out there.
estimate.
Yeah, the estimate
This
or
is
our proposal.
16, then 8 to get it to 5 is the goal.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. We found that there's a bottleneck there. So we've really been focusing on clearing out that bottleneck before we actually increase our leads coming in. So we're getting about 30 leads a month. And with
Wow.
the 30 leads, we're getting this bottleneck within our proposal process. So it didn't make sense for me to increase the amount of leads coming in because that would just increase the bottleneck. So we need to fix the bottleneck first. Once that's fixed, then we increase our leads and just monitor that whole process, making sure everything's okay.
Wow. And now the qualification, is it how diligent is that? A lot of questions, like less than 10, more than 10? How long?
It's probably a good 15-minute conversation unless they have a lot of questions for us.
Hmm.
It's just mainly, how big is the project? Based on of our experience, this kind of project might cost like 10, 15,000. We give them a range. Is that
Huh.
something that sounds like that's within your budget? Because it's like, oh no, we're looking at a $5,000 project and they're giving us, plans for the Taj Mahal. We'll just say, well, it doesn't sound like we're kind of on the same page here. So I don't think this will be a good fit.
You could cross sell with therapy.
Yeah. Sounds good. That'll be our next business model.
Sorry, I don't know. It's funny. Like, you delusional. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and then from there, are you taking the sales, like the converting?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No, no.
Wow.
So when a
A
lead
lot of
comes
people
in,
want to know how you're not doing that, I think.
well, it's taken time, right? Initially when we first started, I was doing pretty much everything, right? It was me, a card table, and my computer. That was my team. And so as time went on, we've only been doing this for in 4.5 years. We've only been doing it for four and a
Amazing.
half years. So I've identified like, okay, what don't I like doing? And then I'll hire someone and I'll delegate it. And then the things that I'm not good at, I delegate that. And then as time goes on, I'm like, okay, I do want to scale. So in order for me to scale, I need to free up my time. So I start delegating just about everything. So a lead comes in, we'll get a signed contract, we'll do the project, we'll close the project. And there's majority of our projects, the clients have no idea who I am
What
unless
would you
they've gotten
say
on
is
the
the
website.
percentage of like, so let's say 30 in a month.
Hmm.
How many would you say qualify they're in the right ballpark where it's probably a good fit as a company?
That
Half?
number I don't have just yet because we just started doing the vetting process about 2 weeks ago because we found that we're doing a lot of sales appointments and
Got
then
it.
it
That
was
makes sense.
unrealistic, right? So we're
Like
like, okay,
more proposals going out
exactly,
than potentially, which could lead to the bottleneck that you figured out.
exactly,
Wow,
yes.
okay, that's great.
So if we vet them out and they're, unrealistic, then okay, we move that instead of close loss, we move it into a no opportunity. And we don't use that as far as our close
Mm.
rate. You know what I mean? As far as the equation goes. So we
Wow.
just started doing that 2 weeks ago because, windshield time, the time to do the estimates and things like that, it just takes a lot of time. And if it doesn't work out because the budget's not realistic or whatever it might be, we just
Would you
wasted our time.
find that could put like more downward pressure on your subcontracting partner?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if they're driving out and putting work based on the loyalty to the brand, to the relationship,
exactly.
you
And
want
that
to
was an
mitigate their you want to make it as be as best resource as possible to them.
exactly right. So we're getting to a point where our subcontractors are saying, "Hey, we're giving you guys all these numbers, but we're not getting that many jobs," right? So it's a morale issue with them, and it's also a time issue with us. So, and a bottleneck issue. So, I feel like over the last 2 weeks, because of this new process, I think we're close to a resolution of that problem. But we're monitoring it too, right? Just make some
Hmm.
tweaks as we go.
Hmm. What would you say are some of the character traits that make the best subcontractor?
First and foremost, they need to have insurance, right? So if they don't have insurance, we don't work with them. We have to check their quality of work. Um, if it's a specialty skill like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, they have to have their licenses. Out here in Texas, you don't have to have a license to be a GC, so we don't worry about that part. It's just the specialties. So insurance, licenses, if it's applicable, we check out their work and we test them out on small projects. And then what we do is on these small projects is one, we make sure that their quality is still within our standards. And are they a good extension of us? Can they
Hmm.
plug into our system? Can they agree to our subcontractor agreement? And do they work with us well? And if the answer is yes to all that, then yeah, you'll work with us. If we found issues where maybe your priorities are not our priority or our priorities are not your priorities, then we're not going to work with them because they're essentially on our team, even though they're not W-2. They need to act as if they are on our team.
Hmm. Uh, what are some of your priorities?
Well, quality
Hmm.
is first and foremost communication, because we need to make sure that the clients know what's going on. They need to communicate to us if their problems come up or whatever it might be. And then efficiency, you know, making sure that they hit our timelines, scheduling. So the biggest thing is scheduling, budget, and communication.
Why is schedule? Why is that for? Is that first or?
I think they're all three equally
Hmm.
important. You know, we have one guy that we've worked with who does good work, doesn't communicate very well, and then likes to show up a little late. So I told my team, I say, hey, look, they're not in line with our core values, so there's no reason for us to work with them anymore.
What are some of your core values?
Teamwork. Man, you're putting me on the spot. I got to
Yeah.
look them up, but
What's your social security number? Oh, I have. This is fun. You can ask me any questions. I'll tell you. My social is one. I'm just kidding.
now, pleasure and service, integrity, teamwork, and goodness, man, I got a blank. We go over it every single meeting.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
impressed already. You're
yeah.
killing this. Yeah,
Oh, thanks, man.
you're a badass.
I
Just so everybody
appreciate.
understands, like this, you were NCIS, weren't you?
I worked with them for a few years. Yes.
Yeah, like clearly, boom, boom. Just like what's it like? Because before this, it was property management too, right? Or a
Yeah, we owned a
software.
property management company for a couple years and we sold it.
How much of that experience translated to this? Would you say? Like, was that
A
were there
lot
certain
because
things that stuck out? And it's like because there's a
yeah.
lot of people that might you know be in a business now that they think
Hmm.
maybe that could be the next 30 years. But hey, it pivoting, right?
Right.
It's in some sense you pivoted and have crushed it in this new vertical. Or is that am I saying that the correct way or
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
similar? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question, yeah, what's translated?
So majority of my team came from my property management days. So the biggest thing I would
That's
say is,
culture.
uh, yeah, it is. I mean, the biggest thing for us, I would have to say we have a pretty good culture on our team. We all love working together. We enjoy each other. Um, we had a team meeting or this week, and the icebreaker was, what was your worst job and what was your best job? And I had a team member just kind of emotional, just explaining how much she loves working with elevation. And I just loved hearing it because I didn't feel like I forced her to say it. I don't feel like she felt like she needed to say it. But yeah, the culture is a big deal for us. I mean, my team members have been with me between 3 to 5 years.
Hmm.
And then when we sold Pacific Rim, our property management company, we had a larger team, and it was difficult because I didn't need every single person on my team. So I had to have that conversation of like, hey, I apologize, but you know, I would love to bring you on, but you would
Wow.
not have anything to do. So I helped them find other jobs. But they still
Really?
reach out to me on holidays and on my birthday, just send me a message to say happy birthday or whatever. And yeah, I miss them. I wish they were still on my team, but they'd be bored.
Do you think that someone that doesn't feel that connection with their employees can learn to care on that level?
I think so. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. I mean, it has to be a change of heart. They actually have to care about people.
Did you ever not, or like less, and then you had an epiphany, like crashing into a tree or something at 4 a.m.? I'm just kidding. Like it's
No.
the deep
Uh,
love it seems like you have for your people.
I would say my experience growing up in my professional life, in the military,
Hmm.
working for bosses or commanding officers or whatever that I felt were not treating us very well. I remember those times, and I remember thinking, when I'm in charge, I am not going to make people feel the way that guy's making me feel right now.
Wow.
So I think going through that, as hard as it was at times, was necessary for me to develop how I'm going to treat my team. And so I think the company has benefited from those experiences.
Hmm. What's hardest?
What I do right now.
It's entrepreneurship,
Yeah, man. It's funny when you're kind of giving me compliments on my business and how I'm operating. Like for me, I'm like, man, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I got to get
Hmm.
better than that. Like it's constant.
Yeah, but that's
I'm not quite there yet. When am I going to get there? When am I going to feel like I'm doing well? Right. It's not until I take a step back, I can look back at the last few years. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing okay. But still, if you're in it every single day, you're reading books and you're watching podcasts. You're like, oh man, I got to solve this problem. Then you got 10 problems. Which one do I tackle first? Right. Um, that's the hardest thing I would say. I tell people I've done a lot of hard things in my life, a lot, but building this company is the hardest thing I've ever done.
wow. Interesting, because I think the most successful people think that way.
I hope so. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hope so. No, because if you think about the inverse of that,
Hmm.
you know, there's this old like Emmett Smith like commercial where he just won the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
some football guy, and he has the bench, and then he brings the bench all the way down to his chest. They said, "You just won the Super Bowl. What are you gonna do?" And he goes, "said I don't remember what he said. Basically, he rested for like a second, and then he just
Hmm.
went back and kept pushing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the inverse of how you feel about. I could resonate. I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. I think though, if I was like, oh man, everything's going great, I'm doing well, like if I felt like that all the time, I'd probably feel like, I can just chill. I can
That's kind
rest,
of what I think. I've
you
seen
know?
that phenomenon take place,
Yeah.
and that is one way to destroy a culture quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, there's times where I feel really happy. I'm like, oh, things are going well. I'll just kind of like chill out for a little bit. And then it would be a very, very short time. And this thought in my mind, like, oh, don't you start resting now? There's other people out there. They're going to outpace you if you start resting now. You got to get it back at it. You know, it's, yeah,
Especially the
it's not
first
tough.
10. It's hard to put an arbitrary number on the years.
Right.
The beginning,
Yeah.
when we're in startup go-go phase,
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
that's a key key
Yeah.
phase. Sometimes I feel you ever feel that way when you're like you ever want to go back to sleep or like I'm asking because like this week, right? I had a
Hmm.
couple opportunities where I could have was like, I'm very tired. and rightfully so. I didn't really sleep
Yep.
to go back to bed, but then it's like, I'm awake. I got to get this done. And then I was really
Yes.
excited about
Yeah.
it. I just feel
Yeah.
like I'm getting momentum from that attitude. It's been like
Exactly.
that all week. It's been like
Yeah.
that.
You know, one thing I've been doing the last couple of weeks is a cold plunge. Have you done that before?
No, no.
So I bought this machine and you can put it next to your tub. We have a tub that we don't use. So I put it next to the tub and you turn it on and it cools the water. I get it down to about 45 degrees. And so I'll go in there and I absolutely hate cold water. I just hate it. But for me, it's a mental game. And I don't ease my way in there and start complaining. I just get right in
Wow.
and it sucks for 30 to 45 seconds, but then I'm in there for a good 3.5 minutes. And I do that because I'm like, okay, no matter how I feel, no matter what I'm thinking, I'm doing this and it's hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I just think if you do stuff like that, it kind of translates to other areas of your life.
Now, does that wake you up?
Oh yeah, it does. It wakes me up. And then I was telling somebody today, like, I'm in Houston, so it's really hot still. And so I got out and I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm like, man, I feel like it's wintertime. I actually sat at my desk and turned the heater on my feet because I was
Wow.
cold for a while. Yeah.
Wow. And that's what's your philosophy on waking up earlier or going to bed earlier or things like that? Have you implemented any, rituals like that to keep high productivity or
I
has it?
always wake up early. I just like getting stuff done.
Mm.
Yeah, and I tell people, so here's what I do. I wake up in the morning, I read the Bible. I'm trying to read the Bible in an entire year. So we're what, month number
Wow.
9, so I'm almost done. I do reading, I exercise, take my boys to school, and then I do the cold plunge. I do all of that by 8 o'clock in the morning. So I feel
Wow.
like by 8 o'clock, I've already got all these wins, and I've probably done more than your average person uh, by 8 o'clock in the morning than probably some have done in a day.
How do you feel by 8:39 then?
I feel good because at that time I'm ready. Like I feel like, okay, I've accomplished a lot. Now I can get back into my work day. I can check what's going on in sales, get my updates on that, going to get my updates on what's going on in operationally, prepare for meetings, whatever the day might hold.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm ready to attack.
Those that are listening they admire your they listen to episode 208
Mm,
where they're up to this point or they're here, they're going to go listen to that. Is your company one where someone's like, oh man, I've been selling Mercedes.
yeah.
I want to go work with Chris. Is that a possibility, if not now in the future, where you can scale in that way for those that want to convert? Because I'm thinking you said
Mm,
inbound
right.
is conversion rate. You also have plans going outbound. So,
Yeah.
or you already are in what maybe. So is that, uh, are you hiring in that or visioning the hiring salespeople or bringing in?
Yeah. I'm not quite ready for that just yet because I have to see how I would develop that, but I do like the proactive sales part of it. And I also think it would be great to have someone who's like a business development person who they're going out and networking for us and spreading our brand around because right now I'm doing it. And because I am an introvert and I can only do that so much, and it drains my energy.
Does
But
it
I need
really?
it does. And I need somebody who gets excited over that, right? And I'd like to have that. And I just feel like that's a more proactive way of sales and getting business. And we're not quite there yet, but yeah, I definitely want to grow in that area.
Now, when you're doing networking,
Hmm.
who are we networking with? Like, is that like Bob or Mary that's looking for a whole, addition to their house, and we're going to be able to sub that out?
Now, when I network with other business people. So I go to BNI. I think it's Business Network International.
Yeah,
So
great
I
organization.
it's really good. And here in Houston, I think they have 66 chapters, and our chapters are like one of the top ones. So it's excellent. We have a great chapter. And so I network with them. At first, that's where majority of my leads are coming through because as they know you, they like you, and they trust you, they start referring business over to you. And then I started doing lunch and learns for real estate agents and developing relationships with them. And then I went to another networking thing down in downtown Houston, and then I just created my own um, kind of. it's not necessarily a network thing, but it's kind of a network slash mastermind group. Um, but that focus really more is to develop the business person to grow their business. And then as we get to work together, we can refer business to each other.
What's it called?
Cypress Business Connect,
Hmm. How often do you meet?
once a week, once a week, every Tuesday. So we've been doing it for 8 weeks now. So it's a
Wow.
fairly new group. We got So three of us founded it. We probably got 3 or 4 members since we started. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I get up there and one thing that I've learned at BNI is I was voted on as an education coordinator. So every week I give up, 5 minutes of education, and I found that I enjoy that. So the mastermind part of this group, we do it once a month. We'll go up and I'll go up and I'll just facilitate a conversation and something business related. And I enjoy that. It's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, in that facilitation, you find yourself asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah. I'll explain a concept or whatever. We'll talk about like, BHAG, what that means, what it
Mm.
is. I'll give an example of, what mine is and, what my goals are. And then I just open it up like, what's yours? And then it's great because it gets them thinking like, gosh, I never thought of that before. So, okay, great. You know what? Our homework for the next month is to come up with that. And then when we meet for the next one, we're going to go over what our goals are. And then we're going to see how we can break that down so we can actually achieve those.
And for those that don't know what they thought you just cursed, what's BHAG stand for?
Big, hairy, audacious goal. I think it's from Jim Collins' book, Good to
Hmm.
Great or Built to Last, Built to Last.
Why is that important?
Uh, for me, it gets me excited about what I could achieve because I really think if it's in our mind, it's there for a reason. It's
Mm.
not there to frustrate us. It's there to guide us to where we could potentially get to if we really put our minds to it and our efforts towards it. So I really think the BHAG is kind of like the North Star of where you should be going.
I um I agree. And when I speak it, it
Hmm.
attracts.
Exactly.
Like whether
Exactly.
that's customers or vendors,
Yeah.
employees, distributors, what have you. It's
Right.
like
Right.
every
It's a
time our attorney calls me, it's like, the hell is on your phone? It's like our net worth in 2034. That's my phone.
That's what that is.
Everybody knows. Yeah, now that,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
because
was
it's
like, why is
that,
there a
Bobby.
calculator on your little icon there?
Yeah,
I
that's
understand now. That's cool.
exactly where we're going, buddy. Let's
I
get
like it.
it. And yeah, there's a whole plan behind it.
That's awesome.
And
I love
yeah,
it.
I'm gonna paint my wall in my office so
That's cool, man. I
that
like it.
every time you're texting me, calling me. One
Yeah.
person said they looked it up. They were trying to figure it out. They're like, I thought it was like astrology. It is. It's geology.
I
It's the vision.
like it, man.
People
That is
ask
cool.
eventually, and then I tell them what's going on, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and it
When
gets me excited.
when you tell your vision that, obvious it's big, right? Maybe not so much now, but at the beginning or maybe even now, do you feel a little nervous telling people because you're like, because it's a little scary?
Hmm. I think so.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and the reason I think so is because I didn't for so many years.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was acting it out and not articulating it and built
Yeah.
the
Okay.
foundation from working with customers.
Sure. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now to get to that next level,
Yeah.
I'm aware and then I'm moving into that
Yep.
unknown.
Hmm.
Dr. Peterson would call it like, we have unexplored territory and explored territory. Unexplored territory, explored territory, and there's what is and there's what should be. And how we're navigating reality and reinterpreting it is that in between of what is and what
Interesting.
should be explored and unexplored and beats
Huh.
and that breaks into hope and anxiety like
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'd be lying to myself at some level if I said no. Now that lie like right might be a necessary self-deception to like
Sure.
do it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reason that I'm courageous in that act is like I've done the work to figure out what is and what should be
Right.
and feel confident of what I know up to this point and
Right.
who I'm working with.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
keep keeping my commitments to myself,
Right.
by giving up certain things, sacrifice.
Right, right.
I can see more clearly. And so the answer is yes, absolutely. And as Peterson would actually say in his new, I highly recommend it, Beyond Good and Evil course on P University, Nietzsche would optimize challenge. It's like it's an optimized challenge. I'm excited to go
Mhm.
veer into the unknown.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
fear, that anxiety becomes excitement.
Mhm.
Plan, sacrifice,
Yeah,
great people like yourself to do it with, because this is all part of it.
exactly. Yep.
And yeah, I'm afraid. Also, shame, right? There's shame and like, so I just took my hat off subconsciously,
Uh-huh.
right? It's like I
Yep,
said
yep, yep.
shame, that I took my hat off. What's that
Yeah.
mean? It's like, yeah, oh, I'm gonna be judged. Yeah, well, I've been judged my whole life.
Yeah, yeah,
It's heightened.
yeah.
Man, there's
Mhm.
nothing worse for me than feeling misunderstood or
Yep.
not trusted or believed or
Right.
not taken seriously. So yeah, all those things
Exactly.
emerge.
Exactly.
I
Yep.
just, yeah, it's painful. And then I just figure out how to use it.
Okay.
You
Okay.
use the pain, use the that energy.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then more compassion, love. I kind of
Yeah.
will like oh, I'll be more amiable and more compassionate.
Right, right.
Whereas my wife compliments me very well. She'll be orderly and hard and
Yeah.
draw a line in the sand. And so then we compliment one another. So
That's funny. You
that would be
just
my
described
answer.
my
The
wife.
answer is, yeah, well, then I have my bias. You guys are going to be, you're huge. You got it going
Mm,
on. Like, so yeah, the answer is abso-freaking-lutely.
yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Same here. Same here.
And you know, and you're a big reader.
Yep.
How do you navigate learning with building? Is it a combination of podcast, audio, physical? Is it some other form? How has that evolved since inception to where you are now? Are you doing more learning, less learning? Do you go in seasons?
No, I
Cycles?
have a goal of hitting, 20 to 30 books a year. Um, and when I first started, I didn't always read. When I was in high school, I never read a book. I always cheated on my book reports. And I didn't start reading really until gosh, man, I'm 49, until maybe 40 years old, is when I started
Wow.
reading. And when I first started reading, it was more about mindset stuff, more inspirational because I felt like I was in a funk trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And as time went on, I felt like, gosh, I don't think I need those inspirational books anymore. And I go through seasons where like, yeah, I could use a little, pick up and let me read a good inspirational book and I'll pick one up that I've read before. But nowadays it's, I'm reading books on there's a book called The American Icon by about Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford back in 2008, 2009, who turned Ford around. I read that. That was a very good book. A book I have right up here is Bill Walsh, the old 49er football coach. He wrote a book on leadership called The Score Will Take Care of Itself. So I'm reading books on leaders, on entrepreneurs from way back in the day. I'm really getting into Elon Musk lately. I haven't read any of his books, but you know that podcast Founders. Have you heard about that podcast? It's
No,
called
what is that?
Founders.
I want to hear. Yeah, what is?
I don't remember the guy's name, but he reads biographies and he talks about it on his podcast. He'll read one like once a week.
Whoa.
And so I binge listen to that podcast and he'll go over a book. I'm like, I'm buying that and I'll read it myself.
Wow.
It's an amazing podcast. So I learn a lot from that because I want to hear from people who, like, Ford and Carnegie and all these guys who struggled at the beginning and overcame challenges. And it's inspirational to me because I can understand, like, okay, they went through challenges too when they first started out. They had these big lawsuits. They had a partner that messed them up. They had bad employees. They had people stealing from them and still achieved a high level, right? So I hear that and I'm like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
It's cool. This is part of the journey. Chick-fil-A, Trader Joe's, all those books. Like those are the types of books I read now.
And audio as well?
I lately this year I've been doing a lot more audio just because I do a lot more work on the treadmill. So
Oh.
I'm one of those weird people that when I work out, I'll listen to an audiobook. I don't listen to music really.
Have you met any entrepreneurs that do that too? Or even among entrepreneurs, it's pretty rare. I've noticed.
I haven't met anyone or had that discussion with anyone and
Yeah,
found
I'd
that
be
they do the same thing.
curious next time you come on if you have some discussion, find out because I
Sure.
don't meet a lot that do while exercising, but I think it's a big hack.
I enjoy it. I mean, I'm doing two things at once. I'm working out and I'm learning, right?
I would say that's one of the main things that kept me from being homeless.
Yeah, yeah.
Starting to do that in 2012 or something like that.
Hmm.
What about you know, I want to understand, let's say you were to bring on some sales or business development.
Right.
What um skills in the context of what your company is and becoming
Hmm.
would you say would be key for that to be successful?
Well, the person would need to be good with people. They'd have to be likable. They have to have a personality that attracts people, you know, and I'd want them to be like someone who likes to gather people, you know, hey, let's have an event. Let's do something together, you know, like that type of person where it's like, hey, let's bring all these businesses together. Let's do something big together and promote our business together, right? That type of person. And I also know that this type of person is going to be very extroverted and not very organized, more than likely. It's very rare in my observation that you'll find someone who's very outgoing and salesy and organized at the same time. So with that, what I would do is I would find a remote team member who is a very organized person who's high C in the disc profile and match them up with this person and that they would be a team. And so that's how
Ah,
I would balance that out.
you're on the what would the sales the extroverted oriented person, what would their disc look like, you think?
They'd be a high I, and the second high one would be a D, more than likely.
Have you done that for you?
Yep. Hmm.
Would you share it or is it too
Oh
personal?
yeah, no, no. I'm a DC. I'm a DC. I used to be a SC, and becoming, you know, just all the stuff that I've gone through, being an
Wow.
owner of this company has really increased my D score. And so,
I believe it
yeah,
changes.
I'm proof of it. I'm proof of it.
Wow. It was
Yeah.
a high S and C, you said?
Yeah, high S, second one is C. So it's a SC, now I'm a DC.
Well, isn't C conscientiousness or something to
Uh,
that effect?
Something, yeah.
Or
Essentially, if you're a C, you're very organized. You like things in order. You like checklists, things like that.
and the D is what?
D, I believe, stands for dominant. So they like to be in charge. They like to make decisions. Um, you know, there's more to it than that, but essentially
Hmm.
that's kind of the idea.
What's the S?
S, I can't remember what the S actually stands for, but it's someone who's like very empathetic and loves people and um you know, just that type of person who would just care for people.
Hmm.
um and so I would say it's possible, I don't know if this is actually true, but I told you about my background and I think that background has developed my S, and then when I became an owner of a company, my S really took over and I really wanted to create this culture. And then as time went on, lawsuits, you know, the subcontractors screwing me over, partnerships that I didn't really care about has really developed my C and it kind of lowered the S a little bit.
You
You
think you
know what I
become
mean?
a bit more assertive?
I have.
Because that's
Yep.
associated with the D.
Yep. Hmm. Hmm.
When
Yep.
I did that so many years ago, I was 100 on D and I and zero on the other two.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, the S is this wasn't this is just the
Hmm.
reason I started interviewing people, or I'm sorry, the reason I started asking questions because I interviewed people in the beginning and didn't ask any questions. It was horrible. I realized that I didn't listen, like I didn't. So that I mean, I have to do it again. Maybe this is an exciting thing. Like, oh, I should take that test again. But the
Yeah.
S piece, I think, as I've,
Yeah.
worked on slowing down and calming my mind down
Mhm.
and letting my
My
heart.
observation, just listening to the show, the episodes that I've listened to, and you've been guests on other shows, I would say that you got a pretty good score in S just based on, you know, watching you and listening to you on podcasts. So it'd be interesting to
Thanks.
see what your score is.
Yeah, I would like to do it again. And
Yeah.
also, my wife's helped me with being a more responsible person just by calling me out of my BS, and then also just like working with such a hard worker.
Hmm.
I've had, so the C is like conscientious.
Yeah.
Uh, I got to take the big. I have not taken any of those in so many years, but I
Hmm.
like, and I was really against them because the high D, like paranoia, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like, I don't want anyone taking a test of me.
Right.
Um, really like not interested. But now it's like, you ever heard of the Big Five?
I don't think so.
It's Jordan Peterson's.
Hmm.
It's like conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism. Man, I don't know the rest of them. I don't know. Wait, it's like conscientiousness. Oh, creativity
Mm.
and high trait neuroticism, extroversion. And there's another one that's not coming to mind, but all the tests have value, and it's which one are you going to
Yeah.
use, and the
Exactly.
methodology to follow, and so on.
Right. I've taken the
There's many.
Myers-Briggs in the past, and the reason why I used the disc is because Steve Rosenberg was my business coach. Well, still is.
Oh, shout out to Steve.
Yeah,
He's been on the
Steve.
show before.
Yeah. So he and I still see each other quite often, and his business partner Pete, he and I meet once a week. They're really big on disc. So I said, okay, well that's what they do. I'm going to do the same thing. So I've gotten really good at disc, and there's better people in disc than I am. But for example, if I'm going to hire a bookkeeper or an accountant, I'm not going to hire someone who scores high in the I and low on C. I need a bookkeeper and an accountant who's going to be high C because they pay attention to the details. I could care less about their eye. If you don't want to sit in front of the computer and just not talk to anyone, but you're doing math all day long, that's cool. That's what I need you to do, right?
Hmm.
So, but anyway, I think it's a useful tool just to get an idea of who you're dealing with.
Hmm. What would you say is the most exciting prospect for 2025?
For like what we're
The
gonna,
growth of the organization, what you're looking to
yeah,
accomplish. Yeah.
what we're doing now is we're going through a process right now to become certified. I don't know if that's the word, but certified government contractors. So we'll be able to do work for the federal government anywhere in the US or even outside the US if we wanted to. And so I'm taking my skills in our company and we're going to do projects on federal facilities. So the US government, from what I understand, has a $270 billion budget for facilities. And there's only 25,000 qualified contractors to do that work. I want to be one of them because there's a lot of money to go around. And so I really feel the model that we've built doing things virtually and being able to do projects virtually, doing that over the last few years has really prepared us to do this role with the government. And I really feel, based on other people's testimonies, that this will help us get to a point where we wanted to be because we want to be a national brand. It's hard to do that in construction because you have to go to each state and be a licensed GC in each state. But with the federal government, you just get qualified with the government and then you can do it anywhere in the country on federal facilities. So that's what we're really focused on um, in 2025. But I also really enjoy the local Houston construction with residential and commercial because um, the thing I enjoy about it, I love marketing. I don't know why. If I were to do it all over again, I'd become a marketing person. I enjoy SEO. I enjoy watching the analytics after I've done several different blogs and seeing leads come in. If on the government side, you don't need to do that. So if we only did government, I'd be losing the thing I enjoy doing. Right.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, anyway, those are the things that we plan on doing for 2025.
And how did this idea come in the first place to do this type of business?
For the government, or I mean, for the virtual stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, the brokering. So yeah, it's ultimately brokering
We got
party A and party C. If you're if you're A, party
Mhm.
B, party C, or how you could look at that a couple of different ways. If you're C,
Yeah,
A and B, let's say you're C, A and B, A being client, B being fulfillment. How
right.
did that even come about?
Well, there are general contractors out there who actually swing hammers. They have their own crew. So those are the ones who like, you hire me, I swing hammers, and I can actually go work on your house. But there's also contractors, and I think I heard the term called paper contractors, where they would just get the job and they would find good skilled workers to do the job for them, and they don't swing hammers. So obviously I fall in that category right there. So yeah, how did I learn that? I don't know. I just kind of fell into it really. I mean, I think in the last episode I talked about my experience in Afghanistan, how I got into
Yeah.
construction. And I just took that experience and just brought it into the business world.
What have you got connected with any people that do it throughout the United States that are like, you know,
On the government
you're
side, yeah.
aspiring to?
On the government side, I have, yeah.
What's worked best for them?
Well, one guy that I talked to, um, when I talked to him, I had self-doubt of like, gosh, could I actually do this? And I told him my business model, and he's like, man, you've already prepared your business to do this work.
Wow,
So you can totally do it. He goes, you do it better than I do. And he's making a lot more money than I am. So I'm like, okay, cool. I could do it then.
that's
I just
amazing.
need to know the process. Like, the thing I know is that when there's a process and I go through it, we're really good at creating a system behind it. And so we just follow that over and over again, and we'll do fine.
Hmm. What do you think of EOS?
uh, so we follow, well, I don't want to say follow it. We use it as a resource because it helps create some kind of organization in the company and our meeting cadence. And it kind of gives us a general guideline of things we should be doing in a company, right? Um, Now, I know people who just say you have to do it by the book. I don't do it by the book. I don't like it. Um, I take it, I'll read it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it my way. And so that's how we've been kind of doing it. Do I like it? Yeah, I like it. It's a good framework to get, something going and get some organization within your company. Um, but I don't like to just follow it to a T. I like to have my own flavor, I guess. I like it to be authentic to who I am.
What are some ways that it really did help you?
Our weekly meetings, it's been
Mm.
good. Our meeting cadence, SOPs, org charts. We're going through what's called the people analyzer, just making sure that the people on our team, do I feel like they're in line with our core values? Do they want it? Do they get it? Do they have the capacity to do it? I think that's a good exercise to do because it either identifies team members who should not be on our team or team members who should be trained better. So
Mm.
that's a good practice, whether it be EOS or another way. At least you're going through something to really put some focus on your team, right?
I got a question. Is there
Mhm.
a tracker? Because I actually don't know this. Is there a tracker that helps one understand if they should be on their own team?
Like for me to be on my own team type
Like, yeah,
scenario.
the owner.
Um,
Is there anything like that?
I haven't seen anything like that. No, I haven't come across anything like that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's
I
not a trick
think,
question. I'm just it's,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking like you should have self-awareness to know that if you lack certain skills in your company, you should be hiring that
well,
out.
that's a paradox because if you don't,
Hmm.
and something that doesn't provide that, then if it only provides a magnifying glass over the team,
Hmm.
then the other is magnified and the self is minimized. So it's not
Exactly.
me, it's them.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
something about I want to throw this idea by you because
Sure.
you're deep in the personality tests.
Hmm.
What if psychologically, because you have psychology, then you have sociology, and there's
Hmm.
feedback loops, like how we lead influences others, because
Right.
our people model our behavior. They below awareness even
Hmm. Hmm.
they they see what we do, right? The law of the picture, Maxwell. People do what people see. Our
Right.
children, right? Like they act. They don't want to hear us tell them not to smoke when we have a cigar in their mouth or whatever,
Yeah.
cigarette,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so um you know how like the disc can change if someone works on themselves?
Right.
Well, what if, so like in the absence of that exercise for someone to look at themselves,
Mm-hmm.
how could if it's only emphasized on the people,
Mm-hmm.
then how can the disc change?
For
Be,
yourself.
like meaning like, yeah, like you know how you said, my disposition and this
Mm-hmm.
is now this.
Right.
In the absence of the exercise to look at oneself
Mm-hmm.
or to say, then there's never going to be the right people because it's it's just focused on the other.
Mm.
Keep
Okay.
getting that would be
Yeah.
what I'm trying to
I,
say
I
with.
think I think I maybe I know what you're saying, and that maybe that's one thing that's lacking in this EOS thing is um, I know there's a 360 review, right, where your employees can review the boss anonymously, right? I've gone through that before, and I thought that was a great exercise.
Oh, what was the takeaway? Yeah, like what
Oh, yeah. So it's been a while since we've done it, and my team has gotten a lot smaller now. So it's like, gosh, what if I have 5 people and we do it, and I read it? It's like everyone knows, like, oh, he can tell that I wrote it because it's in my style, right? So it's kind of hard to do it, but um, in fact, I had a team member today tell me, she goes, Chris, you know what I like about how we operate is that she said, you let us disagree with you, and you let us push back. And so for me, that tells me, okay, cool. They feel comfortable bringing up hard issues. They feel comfortable telling me, hey, I don't agree with you. And I told them, I said, I love having good, healthy arguments because it forces me to defend, in a way, defend my position, but it also forces me to hear the other side. And I would say there's been a lot of times where they've changed my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't see it that way. Right. So I don't know. It doesn't really answer your question, but I think maybe the book does lack that part because there really should be a feedback of, hey, how's the boss doing? Does
Yeah,
he
because
get
what I
it?
was trying to say was, and I didn't say it clearly
Mm-hmm.
at all. The boss's behavior influences the people's behavior below their awareness. And it only becomes aware when there's a revolution,
Mm.
meaning the subconscious becomes conscious
Okay.
based on in revolution.
Right.
Like when there's cultural issues, it the by the time there's a culture issue, it's too late.
Yeah.
They've already killed the king.
Yeah.
They were meeting in secret. So of
Mm-hmm.
course the
Mm-hmm.
surveys are anonymous because
Right.
no one tells the truth.
Right. Right.
So like the right way is when the survey is just called people tell the truth
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
they feel safe to speak the truth. The
Right.
oxymoron in an anonymous survey. And by the way, we could need we could benefit from training wheels when we've never ridden a bike.
Sure.
The goal would
Yeah.
be to get to the point where we go from not having any survey.
Mm,
If you start with anonymous, let's get to not needing any
exactly.
anonymity. It'd be like,
Exactly.
I'm afraid to vote because they're gonna find where I live.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a healthy culture
Exactly.
for
Agreed.
individual sovereignty. So
Yeah.
when companies only do anonymous surveys, that's an oxymoron,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
an anonymous survey.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the person in power, they're so unaware, they're just going to rationalize the results anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yep.
no, yeah, I would say what I was trying to say earlier was like the if there's no mechanism within to help the person in position of absolute control,
Mm-hmm.
influence, and authority, e.g., power,
Mm-hmm.
look at themselves, then the actual system is going to lower their self awareness
Mm-hmm.
and incentivize them psychologically to blame their people.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a paradox.
Yep. Yep.
And it would be like they're not gonna their disc test isn't gonna change because they're not actually becoming more aware to alter their behavior. It's always
Yeah.
these people. We got to get new people. You got to
Exactly.
change your values. And that's
Right.
the that's a missing element that can actually completely dismantle a company culture, because it could, what happens is over time, especially with partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
the parents are forced to have a healthy marriage because of the kids holding them
Right.
accountable.
Right.
The kids hold the parents accountable by being kids, meaning driving them crazy,
Mm-hmm.
being unable to think for themselves.
Yeah. Right.
They could die, right?
Yep.
Like it forces us to get close to our spouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
You're right. Yeah.
biologically,
Right.
every illogically you could use. If the child forces parents, you know better than
Mm-hmm.
you had kids, it forces
Yeah.
parents to communicate.
Right.
Employees force partners to communicate.
Yeah.
My belief is that that system is missing a couple elements, that it actually increases the likelihood of partnership dilutions.
Mm.
It's a fundamental. Now, maybe it's on purpose and they're just using it to buy companies, because the best way to buy a company is dismantle the partnerships.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a little conspiratorial. I can give people a bit too much credit. It could just be a fallacy, and like
Yeah.
it could just be a mistake.
Sure.
It
Sure.
could just be an honest mistake from the founder that made it, because they're just a founder and they're caught up in their own founder trap. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, yeah, that's what I'm trying to. That was what I was trying to say, and I've actually never quite articulated it this way. This has been helpful. I'm curious what your thoughts are, because you're deep. You give me credit for being deep. You're a deep guy. You've thought a lot about this.
Mm-hmm. I
What am I?
think,
Let's poke some holes in my argument, or
well,
maybe
I agree with what you're
I'm missing
saying.
something.
And I think it's hard as much as, for example, like my team's been with me for a few years and I have a couple of team members who say, "Hey, I like working here because you allow us to disagree with you." Right. But where am I going with this? So even still, it's like when there's a problem, like what you said to your point, it's easy to blame. And it's, I can get there too, right? Like, oh man, like this happened and so didn't do this and this. But I fall back on, you probably heard of Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, right? I fall back on that of, all right, there's a problem. There's a problem with a person on my team. It's my issue. Like, what didn't I do to prepare them for this, right?
That
It's the
still makes
ownership.
it about them.
I don't know about it. I think it kind of transfers from, instead of pointing it now at my problem. Like, what did I do wrong? What did I not do to help them get to overcome this issue, right? I didn't train them well enough. I didn't give them the right resources, right? Now it's my problem. What do I need to fix in me and my leadership so that way they can be a little bit more successful in their position?
I need to think about that more. There's yeah.
It's I
Right, because
just I understand. I mean, there's
what if it really was them,
mhm.
right?
Well, then,
It's not me,
yeah,
it is them, and I
right,
actually just need to listen to them because it is them
right,
and not me. And by presuming it's them, but it's me, it's because of me. Like
right.
it's passive aggressive. Like it's. I would argue that psychology, if it's black and white, it
Hmm.
could be rooted in an omnipotent psychology.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, but
meaning that person may not be a good listener.
true. And so
As a
that's when you
consequence of that philosophy, is what I'm saying.
right, and that's when you got to go to like, okay, let's talk about this. Like, we had a failure here, and here's an issue. I don't feel like I've done this for you, so here I'm going to give you training, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to meet or whatever it might be. Like I'm going through this process with them, and and we do this in the military, right? It's called oh gosh, I just had it in my mind. But you do extra training. And at the end of that, it's like, okay, we've done all this training. I've given you everything that I could possibly give, but you're not there yet. Maybe you're not the right person for this position, right? I mean, it happens, right?
Oh, of course.
Right. And so at that point, I really feel like you've exhausted everything. You've done everything as a leader to help them out. And at that point, it's like, okay, cool. Let's talk about a transition here. How can I help you get to the next? Where do you need to go? How can I help you find something else or whatever it might be. Not everyone's going to be a good fit, but I really think it's on the owner, on the leader to do everything they can in the leadership aspect of it, resources within, reasonable means to help that person become better in their position.
We're in agreement on that. The how of how that happens,
Hmm.
because growth is paradoxical. And this is how the order matters. If we have an overemphasis, for example, on our employee engagement,
Hmm.
if our energy is going towards them, you can't, time and space won't occupy the same, like time
Right.
and space. That means we're not engaged with our duties, our customers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like if the ratio of engaging with employees and engaging with customers is out of equilibrium, not in the right order, and it can be argued what the right order is. Well, the organization has to grow. Well, how do we actually grow it? Like, so I would argue culture is a consequence of customer service. So the service means I'm moving towards customers
Hmm.
because, right,
Right.
my responsibility is the responsibility that I emit through
Hmm.
my action and interaction, word, thought, action,
Right.
is observe. It's learned behavior through observation.
Hmm.
So the employees are modeling my behavior
Right.
above and below awareness based on what I do with the customers,
Hmm.
like, right.
Yep.
And if I obfuscate responsibility there, what's the natural outcome? I'm going to have an overemphasis of engagement to employees. Top down, it's like top down accountability. The accountability responsibility is backwards. It's and now, like, I'm not happy.
Hmm.
I just am hovering.
Right.
I might have the best. I'm throwing parties every day. I'm having free pizza. I have a lot of free time on my hands all of a sudden.
Hmm.
I'm working on the business. The people, they're not seeing my spirit engaging with the customers.
Right.
Only having a relationship with me, like between me and them.
Okay. But isn't you reach to a certain level, right? You have people who work for you and their job is to serve the customers, right? And I think it's built to last with Jim Collins. It's like our job is to take care of the employees and the employees take care of the customers, right? So what you're saying is they're going to take care of the customers the way we take care of them. Even
I'm
though we,
saying, that idea
hmm.
is a symptom of, so like in one context, right? In business context, everyone's all gung ho about that philosophy.
Hmm.
Then in a cultural context, all we do is complain about the entitled kids in the generations
Sure.
of millennial, Y,
Right.
Z, Z, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I'm saying the business ideas that we're talking about that we all agree with consciously,
Right.
they're from like 30 years ago when those were theories. And now we're living the consequences of those theories in our culture today, our culture
Right.
that we complain about because entitled people don't get things done. But we're modeling those behaviors in our business culture. And we haven't seen the consequences of that yet. Like,
Mm.
but companies do. They go out of business. They become nihilistic, void
Mm.
of meaning.
Yeah.
They're in midlife crises too soon, or even third and second and fourth ones.
Yeah.
Partnership dilution. I'm saying EOS and all these companies are, the reason they're wrong is because they based their assumptions on a precondition that's incorrect, that our macro culture is suffering from, like the valuelessness, the nihilism of our Western society,
Hmm.
the high entitlement, high resentment, low personal responsibility, low communication feedback,
I
right? No
see.
one can talk to each other. So
Right.
what I'm trying to say is what we're suffering from in our culture today on a macro level, business, I think in the next 10 years or in some period outside from now is screwed.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I mean, I've been trying to flush this thought out for a while. It's not like I've written a book on it yet where I've really been able to write chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and
Right.
not saying what's in my head as clearly as I will when I kind of flush out
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like a combination of intuition, field experience,
Right.
um, multidisciplinary study outside of just the literature of business. Because like a lot of those good to greats and all those things, those ideas are partial truths.
Hmm.
Like the order matters. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Is that
Yeah.
the idea that we take care of the employees, yeah, from a resource standpoint, but not from a responsibility standpoint, because that would be like having your kids live with you till you're 40.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Totally get that. Totally
Like
get that.
like the CEO's, the founder. This, I guess, an easier way to say it. The job of the CEO is a salesperson. Like it never ends.
Yeah.
And a lot of these small businesses get convinced that they're not supposed to be working. Basically,
Hmm.
it'd be like the parents retiring too soon while their kids are still young enough to see what hard work looks like,
Right.
and the kids never see what hard work looks like,
Right.
so they grow up entitled. They don't have any values,
Right.
and the parents are still never around. They're always on vacation, so they never have conversations around the dinner table about what work is, and then they wonder why wealth transfers. The first,
Yeah.
they lose it by the third generation. What I'm saying is, like, the average business that's learning from the business consulting, or not consulting, like coaching
Hmm.
world, is getting information that sells very well and has very low results. If you
Okay.
play it out for 3 years, 4 years,
Sure.
you just get partnership dilutions,
Right.
disengaged employees, miserable owners, because we've been sold this idea that we shouldn't be working. Basically, we should be beating ourselves up as owners
Yeah.
that we're doing things,
Right.
when it's really our calling to model work for our
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Because who the frig wants to work for a tyrant? Who wants to work for a king?
Right. Right.
But everybody I see on social media that has any type of Ferrari is telling me I should be a king and my
Hmm.
people should worship me.
Mm.
It's like, but wait, would you want to trade places with them?
I
Like the
wouldn't
employees?
know. I
No,
wouldn't.
it's like, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm trying to, and I'm exploring how the hell can I
Yeah.
say this in the,
Yeah.
clearly it took me 20 minutes just to get there. It's like, well, I'm, I, I think I know what I'm talking about.
I, as you're explaining this, what I'm thinking is, like I said, this book is a good guide to help go, create organization within your company. I was helping another company get more organized, and I'm like, hey, let's get this book and let's go through it, right? And they're going through what they call the level 10 meeting, and there's, you do 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that, 10 minutes of this, 30 minutes of that, right? The way I do it in my company, it's like it's free flowing. Let's have a conversation. Let's go over our KPIs. Let's talk about it. It's fun. We all enjoy meeting together. It's a lot of fun for us, but we still cover all of our things, right? And if there's issues, and there's always issues every week, we go over our issues. We talk about it. We figure out how we can solve them. But the way it is in the book, it's 5 minutes. All right, it's minute number 6. You better stop. You go to the next one. Go to the next one. It's very militant. And to the name of this podcast, that's the culture. It's like, I don't want that in my company, right? I don't want okay, we did the meeting, check in the box, check in the box. Oh, we have core values, or check in the box, they're on the wall, look at them right there. And to defeat that is actually a good culture in your company, where you do have core values. You actually talk about that. You and your team came together and agreed, hey, this is how we're going to operate with each other and with the customers. And we all have the authority to hold each other accountable to these core values. So I guess I'm not sure if this is in line with what you're talking about, but that's what I was kind of picking up, is like, going through the checklist only works for so long. But if you don't have that culture to go along with the organization, it's not going to work.
I think you explain it really well. It's like, let's not throw out algebra because we're doing calculus. Maybe
Yeah.
that gets somebody started. And it sounds like you've learned
Mm,
the lessons
right.
and then you took it to the next level of now you can run a meeting without the training wheels.
Right.
And what
Exactly.
I'm proposing, what I'm more so, I mean, this is a consequence of like, the work that I get to do every day.
Right.
This is another level that organization, as an example, doesn't offer.
Hmm.
And that's fine. It's, I'm not going to be in a college and be yelling at the, like philosophy, introduction to philosophy teacher.
Yeah.
And then you're doing, you're only working with postgraduates.
Yeah.
So, and I would put it in a hierarchy that way of what I'm proposing. I'm trying to make an argument of the general business culture that I think
Yeah.
there's some assumptions that have changed that
Hmm.
have no reason to be changed. Like we
Yeah.
haven't evolved as a species to the point where the leader doesn't have to show values, like
Yeah.
physically,
Yeah.
like
I
physically
don't like that.
show them, like
Right. Exactly.
because
Exactly.
who wants to work for the king or queen or whatever?
Right.
No
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I think you really help. That was a helpful um point. Is like, and I think there's something I want to acknowledge to that is you and anyone listening to this, if they start with a program, good, kudos to them for systematizing. I mean, the consequence of systematizing anything, right? There's going to be
Hmm.
diminishing returns, but
Yeah.
that's because, like, okay, start with a system, and then graduate or elevate, as you would put it,
Yeah.
into a higher order managerial nuance is what you're
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
And so you're at that next level, and that organization doesn't provide that,
Hmm. Hmm.
as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's like a beginners, and so
Yeah.
they went more broadly,
Hmm.
and that's why they're so big. And then there's
Yeah.
got people like us that are more niche and not broad and deeper.
Right. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I just think it's important for the audience to acknowledge like the innovation, the success that organization's had. This is less about Karl Marx and more about communism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't like going against it's like the person or no, it's the ideology,
Yeah. Agreed.
not against the company's
Agreed.
value proposition or
Hmm.
intention. It's the philosophy taken too far, I think, is an ideology that actually disintegrates by labeling, by changing CEO and COO, or whatever the
Yeah.
partnership dynamic is, to
Yeah.
visionary integrator. It implies a top down which leads to bureaucracy, a top
Right.
hierarchy. So you and me start a business tomorrow. We need to be like it's like a marriage, except without all the perks. You have to argue
Yeah.
all day long. You don't get kids.
Yeah.
You don't get to have fun. You just are
Yeah.
arguing,
Right.
debating, right? And complimenting each other.
Yeah.
You don't feel like we're equal. What happens? Now one is under the other. They start hating the one above them.
Exactly.
I'm doing all the work. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
now the ideology tells us I'm the visionary.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You're
I
supposed to integrate.
I don't like that at all.
That
I don't.
ideology has diminishing returns. Now, it might speak to people, right? Oh, that's me. No, maybe you just need some Ritalin. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's a little unfair. Maybe you just need some, cognitive behavioral therapy. We started
Yeah.
a business. We got
Hmm.
to, a certain amount in revenue. Now you have to go from a super high DI to build your S, or in
Yep.
your case, go from
Yep.
high S, uh, temperament, let's say
Hmm.
amiable and compassion, to more assertive. Like Peterson, he would do assertiveness training with his clients. I always
Hmm.
believe, like a good psychologist helps us with our assertiveness.
Right.
Um, this has been a very fun part of the conversation for me. So thanks for entertaining it a little bit.
Yeah. It's
I
cool.
haven't had the opportunity to talk much about it with anyone
Yeah.
yet, but I have had a nice conversation with Benny Fisher about it, who's going to come on the show,
Hmm.
who's is like does a lot of stuff with um, the organization.
Okay.
Um, It's funny. She said the organization like Voldemort. You know,
That's funny.
but I'd love to have Gino on and give him an opportunity to share his theories and things. But and
Yeah, I
others.
think I don't know. I'd like to think at the end of the day, we're all working like he's working towards the same goal, right? And maybe it's just I don't know, maybe it's not articulated well enough in the book. I don't know. I'm not
Well,
sure.
I'd love to be his age someday and have somebody crazy enough to try to put me out of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the cycle of life, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
so I look at it as that's beautiful. Is we don't. It's like in our culture today, we don't have to go at each other. We could disagree about ideas, like
Yeah, right.
the
Exactly.
true classically liberal culture. But
Hmm.
man, I could talk to you all day, brother. I
Yeah.
greatly appreciate your time. I challenge the audience to listen to episode 208, Hitting the Target, your first appearance on the show. I'm really grateful that you came back. In closing, what would you say you really want the audience to know about you and how they can get a hold of you and get involved in what you're building?
Yeah, I would say if anyone's interested at all, like gosh, in the trades, it doesn't have to be construction, it could be in the trades. And they're just like, gosh, can I do this on my own? And how do I get started? And, all that's, I really care about one, building a team, specifically a remote team, because I really think building a remote team is going to help small businesses scale faster, right? Because you can get quality team members at a fraction of the price and you're not taking advantage of them. It's a good wage where they live. You're not having to pay the higher payroll up here in the US. It's a good way to start and help scale your business. And the other part is, how do you do SEO? How do you create a website to help bring in leads? Like those are the things I really enjoy doing. So if anyone wants to have a chat about that, I'd be happy to.
My man, thanks so much for coming back to the show. I'm
Yeah, thank
pretty
you.
excited for next time. Maybe we'll get some facilitators on here. We can have a chat.
Yeah, that would be
uh,
fun. That would be a lot of
yeah,
fun.
we
That would be
maybe
cool.
I'll make that happen. Benny,
Yeah.
very smart guy. You would like him. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Culture Matters podcast. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time. Thanks, brother.